Direct Connection is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Good evening. Welcome to your Direct Connection. Tonight we connect you with expert answers to the epidemic of illnesses and deaths linked to vaping. That's ahead. First tonight, Congress getting back to work after the Thanksgiving holiday, and impeachment is on the menu with the action shifting to the Judiciary Committee. Joining us now to answer your questions, Maryland's 2nd District Congressman Dutch Ruppersberger. Sir, thank you very much for your time. Hope you had a nice holiday, and I'm curious if there was any political talk at your Thanksgiving table.
Well, usually we have a rule in my family that we don't talk politics, but it did come up, and we just talked about some of the facts. I have a 97-year-old mother, and she really didn't care either way about what was happening with respect to the impeachment. But it was a topic, no question. I'm
curious. You know, Congress has been off for a week. You've been at work in your office doing events. When you run into people, what are you hearing from constituents in terms of what they want you to do, and also the level of intensity that you're picking up on this?
The intensity isn't as much as we've had with other issues like the health care votes and things like that. I think people, they just talk about the impeachment, and you have what we call Trumpers on one side that are very pro-Trump, and then you have people on the other side. I think the most important thing that I tell them is that we're going through a process. That's Congress's role, our job, as far as being one of the 3 branches of government. And our forefathers created a great system, and we're doing the job. We're investigating facts to see whether or not our president did things that were impeachable.
Now, Republicans came out with their own report today ahead of what the Democrats are expected to do tomorrow. Their conclusion: none of the Democrats' witnesses testified to having evidence of bribery, extortion, or any high crime or misdemeanor. Reportedly, a lot of that focuses on the Republicans saying that there is a valid concern about Hunter Biden's job. Do you see that there's evidence here of high crimes and misdemeanors?
Well, let me say this. I was a former prosecutor, an investigative prosecutor. When you're a prosecutor, you follow the facts. In this situation, that's what I did. And I felt strongly that once that tape came out about our president attempting to basically shake down the president of Ukraine, that disturbed me greatly. And I changed my mind about really whether we should move forward just with respect to the investigation. Remember, our role in the House is to do the investigation and to follow the facts and then do the charging. The Senate is in charge, or its responsibility is to try the president based on our charges and determine whether he's guilty or innocent.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question for Mr. Ruppersberger, you can give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen. Okay. You can also email your questions. The email address, livequestions@mpt.org. In your view,
another thing,
please.
Another issue I think we have to look at too is whether or not there's an obstruction of justice, and basically that's not having any cooperation from the White House. Congress has a job. They were attempting to do their job and get evidence, and when the White House totally just shuts the door and tells anybody working in government not to cooperate or testify, I feel very, very strongly that that's wrong, and that's a violation of the president's duties. And that really bothered me also as an American. Now let's get the facts out and then move forward. If the facts are in the president's favor, let it be there. And also that I know the hearing tomorrow, that the chairman of the committee, Judiciary Committee, has invited the president with counsel or whatever, and the president has said no, I'm not coming. So let's let the process move forward, and we'll find out where it goes in the next couple days, and then we will then make decisions and tell people what we think, and then it goes to the Senate.
In terms of the lack of cooperation from the White House, are there aides who have to testify by tradition? Are there others maybe who are covered by some sort of legal or executive privilege?
Well, there could be, and the one case was already held by a judge that they did not have an executive privilege. What you're attempting to do, though, is to get evidence. How do you get evidence? When I was a prosecutor, you get evidence through testimony, or you get evidence through tangible issues. But what you see here and what was happening during the hearings, you had government employees who were apolitical, and when they heard the president's statements and saw what was going on, they were very concerned about what was happening, and not only just the president, but a lot of his key people that were involved in trying to possibly cover up any facts or evidence about any possible wrongdoing of our president.
Let's take a call from Howard County. This is Myra. Myra, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
Yes, my question concerns the conversation that the president had with the president of Ukraine. What I would like to know is, I assume that Ukraine, maybe Russia or America, NSA, etc., taped that conversation. So I would like to know, when the case goes forward to the Senate, will we hear that tape? Thank
Myra,
you.
great question. Thanks for the call.
You may raise a couple issues. First thing is that NSA does not really have any jurisdiction in the United States to tape any phone calls or to get any type of information. If NSA picks up what they feel are wrongdoing, it then goes to either the FBI and it goes to Homeland Security. And at that time, whether a person's an American or not an American, if they want to record that person in this country, they have to go get a court order. That's our laws in the United States. Now, what NSA's jurisdiction is international, and they are attempting to get information from all of our countries like Russia and China and Iraq and Afghanistan. And they do probably more to protect our country than any other entity I know. Now, the second issue that you talked about was, what was the other half of that question?
What was the other half of the question? Oh, could the tape be played? So presumably the NSA doesn't have it. Maybe the State Department does.
Yeah, the tape is there. And in fact, I would like to see more of that tape. And why is part of the tape not disclosed? When some of it was disclosed and the other wasn't, was that to protect the president because there's something on there? That's the questions that you ask yourself. So I would hope in the end, just like we did with the Nixon tape, that we can get all the evidence and then make those decisions. But that's, again, something that I'm very concerned about our president and the White House not cooperating and not in a process that we legally have the right to do, the checks and balances in our government, to get that evidence, all the evidence we can get. This evidence might be in the president's favor, and it might not be. But when you're not giving the evidence that we want to see, unless it's totally classified and it affects our national security, I think we should get that information also.
The polls are showing just complete polarization on this. Democrats 80-90% in favor of impeachment, Republicans against it by about the same margin. That's
unfortunate.
Here's what I was going to ask. Given that, with your experience in politics, what would you advise Democrats on the Judiciary Committee in the House at large to do or not do going forward when, it's really about the independent voters who seem to be split?
It's not about politics. This is about facts to determine whether the President of the United States, who swore an oath to protect our country, whether he violated his oath and whether or not that really goes to the level of impeachment. And that's what we're doing. This is the problem with our country. And this is the president, in my opinion, his style. He wants to separate the country. When you're on Fox, you hear one thing. When you're on MSNBC or CNN, you might hear another point of view. And that's wrong. We need to come together as a country. And it really bothers me that we are so split. But I really blame, at this point, the president for these statements and his bullyingness, going after people that go against him. Almost every witness. These are professionals who work for the State Department who testified. He personally attacked them. That's not what a president should do. He should try to do what's best for the country and get the facts.
Let's take a call from Baltimore County. This is Gordon. Gordon, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like the representative to answer why the chair does not allow equal call to witnesses from the Republicans and the Democrats, and why is it one-sided? that witnesses are called.
Gordon,
and the
yeah,
questions
got
are
it.
asked.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, first thing, I didn't see most of the hearings because I was working also. I mean, these were hearings, we were in other hearings, other members of Congress. But the chairman of the committee attempts to be fair. I heard complaints, but from what I hear, the way that the meetings were held, that both sides were given the opportunity. They were given an opportunity to ask questions. But when people are doing things that maybe are not relevant to the hearing, he might have held them accountable. So I'd like to answer it directly, but I didn't really see a lot of the actual hearings themselves. My staff was watching it, taking notes, and I saw the news clips. So, it is important to be fair, especially when you're dealing with something so important as an impeachment. And let me tell you, I don't care whether you're left, you're right, you're Republican or Democrat. I don't think anyone likes to try to focus on an impeachment of a United States president.
You're serving on the Appropriations Committee these days, and I've seen some press releases in terms of grant money, in particular opioids, DNA testing, and some other matters coming to Maryland.
Well, first thing, I'm glad you're changing the subject matter now, because it seems all we're doing is talking about impeachment. We still are doing our job. Just since we've been in the majority, we've been able to pass over 400 bills, and 200 of those bills have been bipartisan, dealing with what you talked about, the kits involving rape, opioid issues, all these different things that we need to deal with. And unfortunately, the president of the Senate, McConnell, refuses to really put these bills on the table to vote on. Remember, you can't have a law unless the House and the Senate vote, and then it goes to the president for signature. So I will say this: we are working hard for our constituents, and I'm very happy about our Maryland delegation. We're working together as a team, our two senators and our members of Congress, attempting to get our fair share of monies for the things that are so important to our constituents, whether they be transportation money, whether it be money for crime, fighting crime, whether it be for health issues, transportation issues, and we're working well together. Unfortunately, we did lose Elijah Cummings. He was a tremendous member of Congress, and we're going to miss him.
Before we go,
and by the way, he also went to my high school, City College.
I was thinking about City College because you played football there, right? How much fun are you having watching the Baltimore Ravens on Sundays?
You talk about our Ravens. Whenever the Ravens win, we're so happy in Baltimore that next Monday morning. And I can tell you, it really is exciting. We've always been known to be a defensive team and doing well with our Ray Lewis's and our players like that. But this is exciting to see a quarterback and a team coming together, and now our defense is turned around. I mean, we're on a roll, Ravens, and let's keep rooting for our team.
Congressman Dutch Ruppersberger playing offense and defense down in Washington.
Oh, yeah.
Little special team. Sir, thanks very much for the time.
Thanks. Good to talk to you. Bye-bye.
We're back with our health segment right after this.
Open up the door and take my hand and follow me into the sun. There's no end.
Let's push it on the limit of our understanding.
Hi, neighbor. This is where we go. Amazing. Luna! This is where we go.
We're on the front lines of each story.
I can feel it rising. Like thunder on the ground. Dive into a world I know. This is where we go.
Changing.
This is where we go, This is where we go,
Are we celebrating? How about that? Wow.
Can you tell us what you know?
Turning back now to the race for the White House.
The State Board of Elections voted Thursday to set up a new election.
It must be a very emotional day.
The world changed in the blink of an eye.
Children are at the heart of this story.
In tonight's health segment, we're joined by Zarana Patel and Venetia Amin, both hospitalists at the University of Maryland Upper Chesapeake Health Center. Thank you so much, doctors, for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
We want to talk about this incidence of e-cigarette injuries caused by vaping. Thousands of people, 42 deaths reported. Have you seen any cases in your practice?
Oh, absolutely. We are both hospitals, physicians at the Upper Chesapeake Medical Center. The first case that I saw was a male, 20 years old. These are all the commonalities that the CDC reported. So this young individual came in with cough, congestion, nausea, vomiting. We initially treated him for pneumonia. Because, you know, at that time when we initially saw him around the July-August timeframe, we didn't have this much data from the CDC. Treated him with pneumonia. Subsequently thereafter, this young gentleman came back with the same form of illness. Very concerning for infection, very concerning for pneumonia type of picture. Come to learn he was using a vaping device. The additives to that vaping device was indeed marijuana.
So you tested, you did an x-ray, there was no pneumonia. What did you see on the workup?
So we actually did a CAT scan. The initial test we did was a chest x-ray. Not as specific as a CAT scan, but it did show abnormalities. So then we subsequently went on and did a CT scan of his chest, which basically showed ground glass opacities. In simple terms, it showed blotchy lungs. And it was diffusely, it was throughout his lung fields.
What do we think is happening to these people?
So in addition to the symptoms that Dr. Amin already described, he also had fevers, chills. What we're seeing is a lung injury, a traumatic event within the lung tissue. What is happening is that you get this liquid within the vaping devices or e-cigarettes. There is a wattage that goes through, it vaporizes the liquid and you inhale it. We have no idea what is the composition of this liquid because there's just so many companies making it, in addition to the home concoctions that have been introduced into the market, whether online or a friend makes it. Now you're introducing these compounds into your lungs. They're going into your deep lung tissue and causing various amounts of injuries. This patient that Dr. Amin described had findings of patchy opacities on his lungs. We've seen bronchiectasis, we've seen pneumonia type of pictures, we've seen various types of symptoms, including hemoptysis. One of our patients was a 40-year-old male who had very similar symptoms, not as severe as the 20-year-old, but he did have similar symptoms that have been associated with EVOLI.
What kind of recoveries have these patients been able to make?
For the most part, we have seen a decent amount of recovery. That is not to say that we won't see further illnesses down the road. These injuries can accumulate if you continue to vape, especially if you've already had one injury. You can see an accumulation of this injury, which may turn into a chronic problem, which is what we see in COPD and long-term smokers.
You see people with these all over the place. It's just amazing when you think about what medications have to go through to be approved by the FDA to be released. These are being used, in some cases it's cannabis products, some cases I think it's just a flavoring, and in other cases it's being used for nicotine and smoking cessation. What would you advise somebody who's using e-cigarettes for any purpose?
Well, the physician in me, the data that we have from the CDC is quite compelling. When you have 2,000 cases from September to, November the 24th, when you have 47 deaths related to this is compelling data. As a physician, as an advocate for preventive health, as a professional, I would say abstain from these products until we can get FDA approval to guarantee a level of safety and security.
Let me remind our viewers, if you have a question about vaping, you can give us a call. The number's on the screen, or email a question. Email address livequestions@mpt.org. I'm sorry I cut you off.
Oh, no, you're perfectly fine. We also want to keep in mind that when these devices were marketed, the companies marketed it as a device that can help you stop smoking traditional cigarettes. This claim has never been substantiated by FDA. There have been no independent studies proving this claim. There was one very small study that said we need more studies. So these claims that, oh, we can use the vaping devices to stop smoking is just not true.
And there are other ways to stop smoking.
Absolutely. The FDA has approved medication list. We've got Chantix, there's Nicorette gum, there's nicotine patches. There are multiple modalities that can help you to stop smoking cigarettes.
Absolutely.
You know, millions of people must have tried these things, and watching the news reports, watching this discussion, must be pretty nervous about, you know, I've inhaled who knows what at this point. What should they do? Is there a need, if they feel fine, everything seems to be okay, do they need to check in with a practitioner of any kind? And maybe if they start having a cough, it's winter, it's flu season, at what point do they need to get help?
I would say get immediate attention. The reason we say this is because the acuity of these vaping-related illnesses can happen after a couple uses. It doesn't necessarily have to be used for months or years before we see these injuries. It's a different beast from the traditional tobacco products, which the damage accumulates. There's about 7,000 different chemicals in tobacco products, but these are all well studied. They're known. We know that it's going to lead to lung cancer, COPD, emphysema. The problem with these vaping devices is that the chemical composition can contain vitamin E acetate, which, yes, if ingested as a vitamin, can be processed by the body. It can be used as a topical emollient, which, yes, we have enzymes that process it for beauty purposes, but it cannot be inhaled. So we have vitamin E, we have THC that's being added. There's different cannabinoids that are being added to these products. So really, if you do have any symptoms, it's best to call your primary care physician. It's best to go to your nearest ER and just get imaging tests done to make sure you're safe.
Absolutely. I agree with Dr. Amin. In addition to this, do not become complacent that, oh, my product doesn't have vitamin E. I'm not smoking nicotine or vaping THC. There are other compounds that could be causing vaping lung injury. We don't know if it's a combination of compounds or if there's one single culprit that's causing these injuries to take place. It could very well be a compound that we haven't even looked at as of yet. In addition to this, what I always say is that whenever you're introducing these things into your body, you need to ask questions. You need to talk to your doctors. You need to talk to the companies that are providing these things to you. You cannot just use whichever product that you can get off the street. If you're going to vape despite medical experts tell you otherwise, I would try to stick to the legal companies that have been providing these products rather than buying them off the street.
Yeah, and obviously they've gotten popular with a very young group of people. So then you have the difficulty of getting the messaging down into high schools, maybe younger, that there's a risk.
Oh yes, after 2015, when these companies decided to market these products as safe alternatives, there was a 900% surge in high school students utilizing these devices. 900%. Not only that, 40% of these kids never used any form of tobacco or nicotine products prior to that moment. That speaks volumes.
In addition to that, what we're looking at is that these companies marketed it towards teens, youth. That's why you're seeing these products being used by young patients. If you look at these advertisements, the billboards, it's young, cool, hip people using vaping devices. It's all over social media. These are the types of things that are being promoted. So it's not surprising that we're seeing a lot of young patients developing vaping lung injury.
Email question from a viewer. Have either of the doctors seen any medical marijuana patients who have developed this? You probably don't know what they were inhaling.
Absolutely, and that's the difference.
Yes.
The individual that we saw was not a medical marijuana patient. It was basically cannabinoids off the street. Now, can we say, is it safer to get medical marijuana through a physician licensed provider? Sure, that's the safest route to take if you do need it, because there are medical, there are medical necessities for its use, but it's safer to get it through a provider who's licensed to dispense it.
And for people working on quitting smoking, what's the best path for them?
I would consult your primary care doctor, speak to your doctor about counseling, speak to your doctor about medications such as Chantix or Nicorette gum, nicotine patches. We highly encourage cognitive behavioral therapy, which is very effective in helping you stop smoking.
We have to leave it there. Doctors Patel and Amin, Upper Chesapeake Health, thank you very much. Great advice. And thank you for joining us for Direct Connection. We're back Thursday for Your Money and Business. For all of us at MPT, have a good night.
Your Health segments are a co-production of Maryland Public Television and the University of Maryland Medical System.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.